Well, hello again, everybody. And this is Adriane Berg, and this is The Ageless Traveler. But this is where we have a sort of like a little salon. And if you go on our Facebook group, Ageless Traveler Facebook group, we have a salon together every single week. But here I get the opportunity to speak to the people I already spoke to. And you can hear on the Ageless Traveler podcast. And we've been speaking about grandparents. This is actually our second show, dealing with grandparents traveling with grandkids. And one of those places that I love to go and love to take the children, even the littlest ones, is to theater. So, in this little discussion, we're going to be speaking with Juliany Taveras, and I'm going to make a career out of saying her last name different ways. That's I get tired for you now. So I could say Taveras, Taveras, so many things. Uh, Taveras, I like them
Yeah.
all. They're all very poetic.
I'm
Uh,
fine.
about how you can take your creativity, your talent, and if you have been longing to write a children's play, age groups, how she does it, how she channels maybe and adapts other stories, how she creates from scratch, really a lifelong learning process for you that you can live a little vicariously in the life of somebody who's done it. So, Juliany, first of all, uh, did you have any official background? I think with your fantastic expertise, you probably studied this, but is it true? And if so, where did you
Yes,
start writing?
absolutely. Yeah, well, I always say the most important part was I was writing terrible stories when I was like 10. So you gotta start early if you can. If you can't, doesn't matter, start and get all the bad stuff out. But I also did study formally. I was at Vassar College in New York where I studied media studies and I did a minor in creative writing, including a playwriting class as a senior. And then I actually went on to do my MFA in playwriting as well afterward, which wasn't necessarily my plan, but it was a beautiful opportunity that I encountered, and is where I really started digging into like writing plays specifically.
Now, let's say that we're speaking to somebody who was not formally trained or was formally trained 50 years ago, which is also possible for my group, like me, and they get the hankering. They are so excited because of their grandkids or for any reason. And they really would like to write specifically a play for children, maybe even to perform in their own living room or maybe commercially. Either way, where would you start? This particular one we've been talking about, Maurice Micklewhite, was somebody's book, and you started with that, and Maurice Micklewhite in the Tangerine Dress. But you also do your own from scratch. So where would you suggest somebody start, or does that have to do with their own soul searching?
Hmm. I think everyone's path is going to be unique for sure, which I think is something to embrace rather than compare ourselves or have to feel like we have to follow someone else's process to the T. But I personally do love hearing other people's processes as well because it helps give us inspiration, which I think is a big part of the process, right? Where do you find inspiration and tap into it? And I think it's great if you already have that feeling of like, I want to tell a story, I want to create a story for children. That's an amazing place already to be at, to have that fire. And then it's just about feeding that fire. I think reading other plays and stories, right? Maybe you look for inspiration in children's books that already exist, or read plays, whoever that audience might be for a certain play, and take inspiration from that, or just the world around you. Something with Maurice Micklewhite and Tangerine Dress is that the central figure, right, of the dress is so clearly, I can imagine, I don't know if this is true, but I can imagine if the authors of the book encountered such a fabric or such an item in their kids' chest, they were like, this is an inspiration for like this larger theme. So I think it's like what's already around you, what are things you're already thinking about or talking about. I always think about that when I'm starting something from scratch, is like, what's a question that keep coming back to right now, like what's something that is on my mind a lot. And then a play is really just a way to engage that question. It's like a vessel for my curiosities or my wonderings of the world. So that's always a helpful place to start. Or yeah, with adaptation, I think you can just be really inspired by an existing story and want to share it in a different way. So adapting from book to stage or from book to screen.
So very interesting. I saw Camelot, a very old play and movie. I've seen both. And I actually resaw it this weekend, and I realized that it was a screenplay written from a book that was 653 pages. So can you imagine, and I'm asking you, did you get an opportunity to speak to the author? Did you cut? Did you add? What was that part of the process?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's quite a condensation. Yeah, I had the opposite experience of Camelot where I'm starting with less and getting to create
Adding
more.
more.
Yeah, I haven't yet gotten to talk with the creators of the book, although I would love to. Although with a different adaptation process that I've been a part of, I was able to connect with the author of the book, which was really cool. So it's a great opportunity if you can, if there's a living artist that you're adapting. I think that's a really interesting conversation to get to have. But regardless, I think even without meeting them directly, you're engaging with them by adapting their work, right? So I'm in conversation with the story that they got to share. And yeah, in the case of Morris Micklewhite, it's definitely sort of adding to it. I mean, the book is so delightful. We kept almost everything from it as the foundation. I always say one thing I wish we could have kept is the cat. There's a cat that Morris has. And I was like, let there be a cat, but it's the whole thing to get a cat on stage. So I get why we're not doing it. But everything else really, we really often stay true to. Sometimes you're tweaking like time, right? When something happens may be a little different because we're worried about staging it and how things flow in this live theater sense. So that's when you sort of make changes with adaptation because you're working with a different medium. But really, it was being able to expand on these really poignant moments in the book and be like, oh, if this scene in the book had a little more space to unravel, what would happen before or after this moment? And that's a really fun thing to get to do and dig into those other characters.
Now I'm going to ask you a last question for on the minds of a lot of the listeners who are interested in playwriting for their family. One of the things and the great joys of grandparenthood is watching your kids perform. And they're usually performing right in front of your eyes. You can't help it because they'll say, Grandma, Opie, Omi, Pop Pop, whatever they call you, watch this, right? Because their parents, they're doing something else. So it's like, look at me. And they will dance around or sing around. And you begin to think, they may have talent. Now, a lot of this is grandparent, hubris, but some kids really have talent. So is there a way to cultivate that talent? Because it's easier almost if you're a grandparent. You're only there for the good times, Yeah. And you're meant to dance around with them. And particularly you're working with a young cast because this particular Morris Micklewhite is for 4 years and up. Now the cast is older; they're not 4-year-olds, but they are young children. They're not super teens. How are you cultivating and looking at burgeoning talent that we might in our own home be able to get some inspiration from?
Oh, yes, I love it. Yeah, our cast is not quite four, but yeah, we have cast as young as 11, and they're really spectacular. And I think when it comes to cultivating that sort of, yeah, often natural spark that children have to be seen or to perform or to share, to express, right? This theme of self-expression that we talked about with Morris, it just wants to come out, right? And I think that's a very natural human urge is to be seen and affirmed and celebrated and doing that for each other. So I think that's honestly the most important thing with children is that support. I think, if I think of my younger self or children in my life or former students of mine, it goes such a long way just to really give them that attention genuinely and to, celebrate them and say, keep at it, tell me more. And I think asking questions is one of my favorite things to do with young people because they do have so much to express and to say. And so when we express curiosity, I think it allows them to feel affirmed in what they're doing and continue to want to do it and share. So asking them questions. And of course, if you can share any resources with them, invite them to, we have our actors are amazing. They've all been doing dance since they were 5, all sorts of things. So that's a great thing if you have access, right? To be like, oh, do you love this? Do you want to do a class in it? Or do you want to go to this event? I think is always a good idea.
And by the way, I just want to tell to my people, there are senior centers that not only teach you dance, but let you bring, because not everybody has all the money to go to Maria Priatka's School of Dance, because that could be a pretty penny. But sometimes you can get free, not only classes for you because you're an older adult, but for you and your grandchildren. And if they don't do that, you ask them because intergenerational is now the big, big buzz. So everybody
Yeah.
wants intergenerational. I imagine an intergenerational a dance program. Now, I do want to say this. You also write for television when there's no strike, right? You also do cartoons. You write for everything. But this is live theater. I have a prejudice that this is very important in the days of technology, where most people are looking only at their computer or their phone from the moment they're born, because you have now phones for 2-month-olds. They know how to press the button. I believe that even though you're side by side, usually not face to face, although there's theater in the round, this is a breakthrough that everybody should bring to their children. It's a gift of being with real live people at the same moment. So let's go back to the children's theater. Um, I know you can have little ones sit on your lap, few seats for that. But is there any interaction during Morris or before or after where the children dance a little bit or move a little bit or meet the actors after so that they're feeling a community just right there?
Yes, yes. Hopefully there'll be many sorts of different opportunities for connection. I think that's super important to the children's theater and like we were discussing to live theater in general and feeling that camaraderie, feeling that shared experience. Something that's exciting about our Morris setup is that our stage is actually a thrust stage. So there's audience on 3 sides, not quite all 4, not quite in the round, but we do have audience on 3 sides. So even when you're sitting there, you're going to be able to connect, make eyes, connect with other folks and really feel hopefully what's going to be a very colorful, exciting energy. And within that, right, it's not a very elevated stage. So there's a sort of thrust setup that's really quite intimate that I'm excited for audiences to experience because it will feel right there, right? These young actors will be traipsing around in their amazing costumes, mere inches away if you're in the front row on any of these sides. So that alone I think will hopefully be very immersive, and will help with our audience, especially our children, feel like they're in this world of Morris's imagination. And then yes, certainly after the show there's going to be that time to connect, hopefully like have children meet the child actors. And children's theater also tends to do really awesome sort of events or like things, activities in the lobby kind of stuff, always thinking about like that really important part of theater, which is like we're here together in person, which we know, I think even more than ever now, we know how precious that is, and getting to really connect with folks that you may never see again and will still be so important, or you might continue to see them if you frequent other things together. So I think it's really, yeah, I agree that it's a huge part of community.
It really is. And I want to just tell everybody there that I believe there's a collective consciousness when you are together watching a play. I feel that you are an active, there's no such thing as a passive spectator, because believe me, even how dark the lights are, the folks on the stage can see you. And if you are sleeping in the front row, they are drained of energy. So you got to applaud, you got to be there, you got to be present. And that is why at Ageless Traveler, we do take you to, and there is no trip that we go to that does not have a cultural component. Actually, I'll tell you, we're going to Portugal and Fado, which is a UNESCO song. Fado is UNESCO music, Portuguese UNESCO music, designated by UNESCO as a national treasure. And that's the music of the sound of Fado. And so, of course, even the music itself in community is beautiful. So every trip includes that, but you start it for your kids when they're young. And I thank you so much. I want you to know that we'll be asking people what questions they want to know from you, and I hope that you will answer. Before we leave, I got to explain this. So I'm wearing my monster thing because we're talking about little kids. But this is, I paid 50 cents for this in Cambodia. It's pencils just chopped off from the bottom. This one is sharpened, and it's done by children at New Hope in Cambodia. These are children at extreme risk, almost some of them to the point that their parents are planning to sell them. Something that you don't want to hear about. But what you do want to hear is that they are doing great. And because of New Hope, they can go to school, their parents are supported, their siblings are supported, and you will find that on agelesstraveler.com. It's one of our giving back, and asking you also to give back a penny or a pound, doesn't matter. But isn't that adorable? One of the kids made it. So
That's so cute.
okay, So thank you so much for being with us, and we will all talk again, agelesstraveler.com. Bye.
Thank you.